Hello friends and welcome to my guide on pulling. If you don't want to watch a long video and you just want a quick generic guide to follow, here you go, the Dummy's Guide to Pulling. If you understand all of this, great. Thank you for dropping by. I hope it helps you in your ranked games. For everyone else, if you don't understand some part of this guide, if you want to know more about why I'm recommending certain things, or maybe when you shouldn't do some of this stuff, because it is a generic guide, in many cases, you'll want to do something different. How do you make those decisions? Every single game in a unique scenario? Well, that's what the rest of this will be about, so please stick around. Pulling is a really important part of Dota. I love it. It's really cool. And funny enough, I think a lot of people know it's important, but I don't think they understand it that well. Because it's complicated. And when I see people ask about it, the responses I see are very generic, and I think they're not enough. Like, it'll be a couple sentences, maybe a few paragraphs, that's a little better, but still just like not enough for such an in-depth topic. So I've gone ahead and created the first part of an 8-part educational series, and at the end you'll have your diploma in pulling. And unlike your real college degree, you'll use this every single day that you play Dota because it's that important. You use it every single game you play. It is great. Not just support. So if you're a support player, welcome. But core players could probably use some of this knowledge too, because all the side lanes right now, 4 heroes, four of the players in a game are in one of the side lanes. Then another 4 in the other side lane. Only the mid laners don't really need to know about it, but everyone else could benefit from understanding pulling and what the supports are trying to do, because the cores can help them achieve their goals. So here's the series broken down. This is everything I could think of, broken down into a way that I think makes sense. I hope it makes sense to you guys. It is kind of hard to explain this stuff. But this is what it is. You're welcome to skip around, but really I did try to order it so that everything builds into each other. So I hope you'll enjoy it. Let's get into it. This video is about the intro to pulling. So what it is for anyone new to the game who just, what is pulling? I have no idea. But then for other players who may know that, this is where we're going to get into it. So what are the actual objectives? What are the results? And then some things I think you should know about it. So aggro range and piercing damage, things like that. Piercing damage won't be on the quiz at the end of this, but it is good to know. It does play a role. And so if you're getting like really into the game and you want to know some of the more like hardcore in-depth nature part of it, the piercing damage is involved there. So that's kind of there for your own knowledge. Don't feel like you need to know that stuff though. What is pulling? Especially for new players who have no idea what this is. It's when you hit the neutral creeps in a jungle camp, you drag them into your lane creeps. This causes your lane creeps to want to fight those neutral creeps. They follow them back into the jungle, and therefore you have pulled your lane creeps into the jungle. What an incredible naming scheme. That is what pulling is. It used to work on every camp, but it was broken, and there was no counterplay to it, and so it's been changed to only work on 4 camps in the game. In both side lanes, the small and hard camp can be pulled. So the one circled in pink here. Why would you do this? What are we trying to accomplish? There are 3 objectives I want you to think about when considering why you might want to pull. The first is lane equilibrium. Depending where your lane creeps are fighting, that can be good or bad for you. If it's close to your tower, that's very safe. That's generally good. And if it's far out, it's pushed up, that's pretty dangerous for your carry, and they could die, and they don't like that as much. So pulling is a tool that you can use to manipulate lane equilibrium a little bit. You can also look to secure your carry solo gold and experience. So if you're going to go do the pull in the jungle, you're no longer in the lane. That means you're not splitting experience with your carry, and they're getting all of it to themselves. And then they get the last hits, they get the gold. This helps to funnel resources to your carry and makes them stronger. They get level sooner, get their items a little faster, and hopefully they snowball into a win. But you know, pub game, so who knows what the carry's gonna do. But that's what we're thinking about when we do it. And then there's the reverse of that. Because you are bringing your lane creeps into the jungle, and if they die there at least, the enemy do not get any gold or experience so long as they're not in range and they're not getting these last hits. So that makes them weaker. They miss out on resources, they fall behind. That makes your lane a little easier, and hopefully the game a little easier as well. Now there's technically a 4th objective that I think is worth sort of thinking about, and that's getting yourself the support some golden experience when you get the last hits and the last hits on these neutral camps. You don't have to think about that too much, though. I really feel that these 3 objectives are the big 3. Like, I want you guys to think about that the most. And then it's kind of nice you get some golden experience for yourself, too. Like, that does play a part, but it's like on a minor goal. I want your bigger goals to be these 3 things. When you pull, this is what will happen. Your lane creeps go to fight the neutral creeps. Actually, I kind of described this earlier. They get damaged or killed, depends on the camp. And then after they kill the neutral camp, they will return to the lane, and because they were fighting, it's a little bit delayed. I want to be clear. We laid out our objectives, but pulling does not guarantee that you accomplish any of those objectives. Pulling is something you can do, and it can be good or bad, depending how it plays out. These results, if your creeps die in the jungle, that could mean you're denying enemy golden experience. That could be good. But what if the enemy is there? Then they're not really getting denied, actually. And what if your lane creeps go to fight the neutral creeps, but they don't die? Then maybe you haven't accomplished what you wanted with lane equilibrium. And it's very easy, in fact, to do the opposite of these objectives. It's easy to push the lane further. It's easy to actually screw over your carry and they die because they're by themselves with no creeps. Or the enemy, instead of just getting lane creeps, they now get the lane creeps and a camp worth of experience. They get a ton of resources. Pulling is not inherently good. I want you guys to know that. You might not believe it because, that's what I see when people ask, when should I pull? And people say, oh, you should just pull all the time. God, please don't. It's not. It's terrible to pull all the time. You need to know when to pull and when not to pull, or when to do certain kinds of pulls. Different, variations, stuff like that. Things we'll cover in the future. But there's a time and place for everything. And it's not all the time, and it's not never. It's very... I don't want to say it's defined, but, these are your objectives. And you have to see it and go, I need to establish lane equilibrium. Will pulling fulfill that? Depending on the whole scenario laid out here. That's what we're going to try to explain in the following videos. But all I need you to know for now is that pulling does not guarantee any of these objectives. It really is this double-edged sword, and you have to be careful with it. It's good to do, to learn how to do it, so don't be, scared of pulling, and it's okay to mess up, but, be aware that it's not just always good. Moving on to creep aggro, there are 2 parts to this. So the first is creep aggro range. Everyone has a acquisition range where they start to attack enemies. So for melee creeps, it's 500, range creeps, it's 600, and siege creeps, it's 800. You don't need to worry so much about the siege creeps, though. Now, if you want a visualization on that, this is approximately correct. So this is your melee creep, and this is its aggro range of 500. This is the range creep, and this is its 600 aggro range. If you think the circle looks a little weird, it's because of how the camera is angled in Dota. I promise this is pretty much accurate. It just looks a little funny because of the angle. Now, this is all of them together. So if you want to pull your lane creeps, you need to do one of 2 things. One, you need to drag a neutral creep into these aggro ranges. So for example, a melee kobold chases you and runs into this circle. It will aggro these creeps and they will go chase that kobold back to the camp. The other thing is for a attack to hit you in this circle. So for example, a ranged creep stands out here, out of the circle, but it attacks you when you're standing right here in the circles. When that attack lands, these creeps will be aggroed to the range creep, and then they will chase the range creep. But this is a good visualization, if I say so about myself, about the material I've made. This is a good visualization of what you are trying to do. So when you walk into here, that's your goal. Either get hit, which the attack can come from a melee creep. So this is kind of an advanced tactic, which I guess I'll cover here. But if the melee creep is standing here outside the circle technically, and you're standing in here and that hit, it starts to attack you and then it completes the attack, that counts if you're in the circle. It can happen from a melee creep. And in fact, that is something good to know for the future because there are a couple pulls that depend on the melee creep hitting you and you walking forward into these circles. So I want you guys to be able to envision what this looks like, and it looks like this. The other part of creep aggro is aggro priority. And to be honest, it's complicated as hell. Maybe it's not that complicated if you understand it, but it's got a lot of like random finickiness. And if you've ever felt like, why is this creep following me? Or like, why is it not following me? Why is it doing this? Like, it's because of creep aggro prioritization. And it's really hard to explain because I don't fully understand it. So we're just going to do priority for dummies. You don't need to completely understand this stuff. If you want to like really improve as a Dota player and like really get into the nitty gritty of this stuff, like feel free to read up on it. It's in the Dota wiki. But all you really need to know for pulling are these 4 things. First, creeps will try to hit enemy heroes that are attacking their ally heroes. So for example, I'm on the Radiant, the Dire hero attacks me. My creeps want to go fight that Dire hero. There is a cooldown to this, so you don't even have to actually do the attack. You can just issue the attack command, and the creeps will chase the enemy hero for 2.3 seconds, and that can happen every 3 seconds. So there's a 3-second cooldown. Again, that is good to know. It's really good to know. Not so like important to pulling. It will play a role, but it's not what I want to emphasize right now. That might be like an advanced issue in the future, but we don't need to know that much about it right now. Next, the closest enemy attacking an ally. So it doesn't have to be a hero. It can be just the enemy creeps. But if they are attacking an ally, they'll get some prioritization. And then you'll pick the closest one. So if you have like 4 creeps all fighting each other, and then another creep walks in, it's going to pick the closest enemy that is attacking an ally and go fight that one. After that, it will fight the closest unaggressive enemy. So if you had, say, a Dire hero just standing there menacingly, not attacking, the Radiant creep will try to first attack enemy fighting units, and then after that, it'll go on to the unaggressive enemies. And then 4th is the Siege creep. It doesn't matter what the Siege creep is doing. It will be the very last thing your creeps ever try to fight. This includes the neutral creeps. Neutral creeps follow a very similar attack priority. It's not really critical, but you'll probably see some funny behaviors out of the Siege creep, and you'll be like, why is it doing this? It's because of this. Everything tries to kill the Siege creep last. So, for example, if you have a Siege creep attacking a neutral camp, and you try to go farm that neutral camp, assuming that your Siege creep will tank for you, it will not. The neutral creeps will try to fight you because you have a higher priority than the Siege creep. Because of this, it's kind of hard to use the Siege creeps for pulls, but they can let you do some nifty things in the lane. They can make it easier to do some pulls, but that's an advanced thing. We'll worry about that later, but the basis comes from here, attack priority. And then finally, piercing damage. So, like I said, this won't be on the quiz at the end, but it is good to know if you want to get really into this. So there's actually different attack types in Dota. Now you might be thinking of magical, physical, and pure damage. Yes, those are different damage types, but not what we're talking about. Physical auto attacks, and I should really just say auto attacks. Auto attacks have 4 different damage types in this game. There's hero, basic, pierce, and siege. And in fact, there's 3 different armor types as well, hero, basic, and structure. This stuff is kind of in-depth. This chart, a little hard to read. If we make it bigger, still kind of hard to read, so feel free to look into it in the Dota 2 wiki. All you really need to know, though, is that different types of attacks will do different amounts of damage depending on what the armor of the target is. Most things in the game, heroes have hero armor types. Most creeps have basic armor types, and then buildings and siege creeps have structure armor types. In terms of attack damage type, this part gets a little more complicated, but as a general rule, we can simplify it to this. Since almost everything has basic armor, all damage types do 100% damage to it, except pierce damage. This is the one I want us to think about here. Pierce damage does 150% damage to basic armor. The units that you need to know, you don't have to know, but like it's useful to know, that have pierce damage are these on the screen right now. So the range creeps have pierce damage. So if you've ever wondered why they seem to do more, this is why. It's not that they have higher attack damage, and if you click them, they're very similar. It's due to this extra 50% boost from being a pierce damage type. Then in the small camps, you have the Vul Assassins, the Harpies, the Big Ghost, and then some of the Trolls. In the hard camp, it's these two, Trolls and the Banisher? I forget his name. The little one. So it's these guys. They're all ranged attacks, if that helps you remember it. This is one of the reasons why the Kobold camp is so bad. It's because, for a variety of reasons, but none of them have pierce damage type, and that's why they like do no damage to your creeps. Also the fact that they have no damage. And that's why these creeps tend to kill off creep waves really well, because they do bonus damage to your creeps. So it is useful to know about pierce damage. You don't have to have this memorized or anything. If you want, feel free. But I just want you to know this is why some stuff will do more damage or not. That's it for this first video. You thought I was kidding, but it is quiz time. Take out a loose leaf piece of paper, write your name, fold it in half, all that crap, whatever. It is 2021, so it's open notes. As long as you can answer these questions, that would be great. It is kind of good if you can answer this off the top of your head, though, because when you play a game of Dota, you don't really have time to check notes. So I'm not saying you have to memorize everything in this video. It is stuff that'll just kind of build in over time. But if you've been playing for a while and never really thought about this stuff, challenge yourself to start thinking about it a little more, or maybe just keep watching the videos. I don't know, whatever works. So I'll see you in the next video, and we'll keep talking about lane equilibrium on that one. Bye.